Today we'll be looking at the pawn races where both sides have a rook pawn and when one of the sides has a bishop pawn. And the interesting thing about this is that if you have a pawn on the 7th rank, his king is far away or her king is far away, and you have a rook or bishop pawn, you could get a stalemate. So in this situation we have a pawn on h2 and a pawn on a7. So this king after h4 is not going to be in the square, and there's no way to create the double threat of capturing this pawn and promoting this pawn. This pawn will just go ahead and promote straight away. So it'll play with h4, a5, h5, a4, h6, a3, h7, a2, and then we have a queen. And then after king b1, this is what I was talking about, the stalemate possibility. The threat of black is to get a queen, so we can't allow that. So after queen h1, king b2, we have to get closer somehow and get the king away from this pawn so that we can capture it. We could keep trying to approach it, for example after queen g2, but then he will play king b1, and then the threat of promoting is there again, and that's going to happen back and forth. Well, we can try to go the other way. So after queen to b7, then we can separate the king, but actually there's a stalemate possibility after king a1. And now the queen has to move away from the file, because if the king moves, then black has no moves and it's stalemate. So after queen a6, king b1, queen b5, king a1, queen a4, king b1, queen b3, king a1, and there's actually no way to separate them. Queen c3, king b1. You can't force the king onto this c1 square. Queen b1 and king a1, and this is a draw. And queen d1, king b2, and the threat of promoting is there again. So when the king is really far, there's no way for it to come and give checks up close, like queen c2 check, or followed by queen c1 checkmate. And that would be possible if the king were on d3. With the white king so far away, it's just not possible, so that's a draw. Here we have a bishop pawn instead, and after h5, c5, h6, c4, h7, c3, it checked queens, c2. Now there's more space for the king, but the problem is that after queen h7 to prevent the queening, because after queen h1 check, simply queen c1 equals queens, and that's an obvious draw. Then he'll play see, this is the trick. He could actually just get away with playing king a1 right away, and if you take it, then the king has no moves and it's stalemate. But even if black did something like king to b2, queen b7, king to a1, not blockading the pawn, queen to c6, king b1, queen to b5, king a1, queen to c4, king b1, queen to b3, king a1, obviously not taking the pawn because it's a draw, queen a3, king b1, and it's a draw again because of this stalemate possibility of just having nowhere to go on the left side. And that's why if you end up going to one file to the left, so if you have like a queen or king pawn, you shift everything to the left. After king a1, after this would be king b1. The trick doesn't work because after queen takes d2, then you have king a1 going to the left. But here it's just not possible. There's no space. The only way to save that pawn, if this pawn were in the middle, would be to go king c1, then go the other way. But then the king just approaches whenever this king is in front, because you're not threatening to promote the pawn. So now we have this situation where both sides have a rook pawn. After h4, the king will not be in the square. So the only threats to promote a5, h5, h4, a4, h6, a3, h7, a2, and then you have a queen. The problem here is that black doesn't have a stalemate because the queen's going to a1. So after king c2, to prevent that, the queen blockades the pawn. And then after king b3, the king just approaches. And it's going to be game over. So you can blockade the pawn and then bring the king closer. As long as the pawn can't move, you can bring the king closer and closer. But if the pawn can move, then you better have a pawn that can move. So another thing that black can try is that after h7, he could try king to c2 followed by king b1, so that you queen, then you have king b1. Now this will be a draw if the pawn were on the 7th rank, but as it is, it's not. And therefore after queen to h1, king b2, the queen just gets closer. You can also play, for example, queen b7, and then after king to c1, the pawn is lost because of queen b3. Or after king to a1, trying to enforce stalemate, then you could have a mate threat, for example, after queen to c6, and then followed by queen to c1 if he decides to move the pawn. If king to b2, queen b5, king to a1, and again with the mate threat, queen c4, king b2, queen to b4, and now he has to play king a1. And then the pawn definitely is lost after queen c3. The only move here is king b1, and then the pawn's all yours. So as long as you can control a1, the queening square of the rook's pawn on time, then you'll be good to go. And I have this example about queening with the rook pawn. So after king to g5, which threatens to capture both pawns and then create an outside passed pawn, black doesn't play king to b4 threatening to queen his pawn, because after king takes h4, king takes a4, king takes h5, king to b4, g4, the pawns queen at the same time, a4, g5, a3, g6, a2, g7, a1 queen, and then g8 queens, and there's no skewer trick, queen to h5, and not king to g5 because of queen g1 and there's a skewer, but you actually have king to g6, queen to g2, king to g7, and that's a draw because the queen's protected. So thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up by clicking the like button. Feel free to donate. The link is in the description. I'll give more examples on drawing with a rook pawn, and definitely with a bishop pawn, because that's the more complicated case, in the next video. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.